Right.
All right. Well, today the trustees were meeting we're having a special board meeting to discuss further implementation of the strategic plan. We will I know we should do agenda adjustments first, correct, Holly?
Oh, no, you called to order first.
Yeah, well, I did call to order. Sorry, call to order at
Oh, what time?
7:06. Let's say 7:06. I
Okay.
apologize.
Then you do agenda adjustments.
All right.
Huh.
None? Okay. Then we will say, do we have any comments from any public who is not a trustee or staff? Or,
Oh, stuff. Yeah.
well, no, staff, you are considered public, so if you would like to,
I don't have any comments right now.
okay.
Not yet.
H-E-I-M-L-I-C-H.
You got it. Gold star.
H-E-I-M.
Wonderful. Okay, so first of all, again, I want to publicly thank Wayne for putting out the strategic plan into a chart format. That as Holly wrote and I did it, it's very helpful to have that. I like that. So thank you very much. So the agenda is to focus on sub goal 2. Let me get on there, which is to increase the physical space and maximize the efficiency of the usage of the library itself. So,
Is it just,
sorry.
well, is it just sub goal 1? I mean 2?
No, I don't think it is.
Because
It was put on the agenda. Focus on sub goal 2.
Two extras, so that's good.
Okay.
Do we want to look at? Do we want to?
Physical space, right? But sub goal 1 are all the things that we need to do for which we need more space, right?
True.
Well, sub-goal tool has the same thing. I mean, different things, but reasons why we need to do it. So both of them kind of.
Okay, so we would like to look at sub goal 1 and sort of look on that first and work our way.
Yeah, and this is where when I thought of the notion of task owner, and I made some more notes on my own copy because they didn't want to presume I'm still a newbie in all this. Oh, move this here and that person goes here, and I refrained from doing that on the one that I posted. But I mean, clearly there already are a task owner, and I don't want to presume, but I did a lot of strategic planning as an administrator. I mean, ad nauseum. So I don't want to presume that I know more than anybody else about this, but the real basic is you have to have somebody who's going to be the owner, who's going to not necessarily do the work, but make sure the work gets done. And so I added that column. And then each of these has a cost, or most of them have a cost associated. And especially as we're starting to build a budget, we've got to know, like, for example, later on, there's about the internet speed. Well, the cost of that is, Holly told us the other day, the increase in the cost is substantial. And that's kind of the cost of getting the strategic plan done. So when I looked at the sub goal 1, some of these are Abby's job. She's the task owner. She doesn't necessarily have to get them done, but she's the one that has to make sure that some of them get done. And then also to Bill's point, because somebody had forwarded, I think pretty recently, Bill's comments in December about how you measure progress on this. And I'm assuming Abby does some of this. She couldn't do what was asked before she was even hired to do it, but how many programs were there in 2021 or whatever, and how many programs will there be at the end of the strategic plan? And part of Abby's job, or Holly, if she's doing the adult program, I don't quite know how that's parsed out, is keeping track. Okay, well, we had 12 programs in 2021 and we've got 15. I mean, Bill wanted to set a number we were going to shoot for. I think, I'm just saying, in my bitter experience in schools where everybody was told to jump and the principal's job was to say, here's how high you have to jump. I thought that really was not terribly effective. So if Abby just knows her task as far as kids and youth is to increase the number, well, she's going to do her damnedest to make that number bigger, rather than, Abby, you better get to 15 by the end of 3 years. Is that useful? So her just keeping track of that and also where those programs are, because one of the things that came up in this strategic plan is, do we have enough room and how much room do we need? And if she
Well, that's the
kind of
big
kept track
issue.
of which room there was, then later on, we'd be able to say, we're packed to the gills. I mean, we already know that, but
Data.
But you
we'd
need,
have
you
data to.
want data to say,
Right.
for this
Especially when we're
many
gonna sell it
programs,
later
we
on.
had 50 people and it totally outpaced the space.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and that was what Bill's point was, really, the point.
Well, that's a really good point, that we need to be explicit if we're asking for space. We need to be explicit as to, not just because we feel it, but because we have data that supports that.
And it makes us look much more credible when we're, gosh darn it, we want a bond for $250,000 or $1 million, whatever the deal is. We're gonna need numbers. to
Yes.
support that.
Yes,
I'm all set, thanks.
so, yeah, I don't know that we're, I mean, you guys track the programs that
Yeah.
you do, and you track how many attendees
And I've been
attend.
keeping notes as well on like.
That
do I
would be
have to
good.
Cap a program because only 10 kids are gonna fit in here for animation
Right.
club.
And you had 10, or you had 11 who tried to get in and you had to turn one away, that kind of stuff.
Now, if you or Holly could just look back a little bit forensically or whatever,
Mhm.
and get a sense of what was 20, not anecdotally, but try to come up with some numbers somewhere. somewhere.
We've got,
Oh,
we have to
yeah.
report.
Then we're really kind of gearing up already.
Yeah,
Report to
in
the
their
state.
reports that come.
And we have to
you-
report to the state every year, so we have
Oh,
it
so
back
it's
from when
there.
the library opened.
That's good.
But we have to know how many programs actually exceeded the size. The
Capacity.
capacity that we
Yeah.
have here,
And that's what
which
this
might be a little
measurement
different than
column,
what you report.
that's what this measurement column indicated already on the strategic plan.
Something you could do on a
I
Thursday.
can.
Go through your old notes.
Well, there's a fire department limit on the number
There's
of
a,
people.
there's a
space,
limit
right?
on, right, for the building
For the
size,
building,
and we
yeah.
have exceeded that before, and I can tell you exactly which programs, and we have one coming up that's gonna do it again, so,
Is there a notion that I mean, I'm sure there is, but what is it that there are simply programs that you can't do or you have to put off?
That, and it's not just programs, people need individuated meeting rooms or work rooms. There's a lady
yes.
who comes every Friday and she sits while the Londons are banging on drums and playing harps and tries to get her work done, but like, I'd love to have a place to put her that's not
Right.
there.
Mhm.
So can we spend some time and try to document those instances and the
Take a picture of
exact
it.
cases where we've been over
If you
capacity?
will.
Yeah.
We have pictures,
Yeah.
we've
That's,
been doing pictures.
that's also
Good.
things that we've been collecting.
Good.
Do we have a folder of them, or is it just?
Not yet, but we can make one.
Perfect. That's what we want. We want to be able to pull it out.
Mhm.
No, that's very good. That's a good step to have. So that will make it a lot easier. Okay. The question is now, do we want to fill out this sheet for ourselves and be able to have it so we can gauge progress?
Yeah, the other question, sorry, son, is, and maybe this is
No, go
More-
ahead, Nancy.
more part of goal 2. How often does somebody want a room or a space that they can't have?
That's a good point, which wouldn't show up on any of this.
No,
Well, that's like her lady. So I think
right.
the
Well,
front
it's
desk
that.
has to track
Well, it's
requests.
also the groups that we have to turn away for this room, because this room is already in use.
Right.
too.
Exactly.
And that should go in this folder too, by
Put, like,
date.
a sticky note on the big calendar. We can just make tallies for folks that we aren't able to fit in.
And what their, maybe just a little bit about what their space was, like they just needed this room, or they needed, a bigger space and we couldn't accommodate them.
Right. Or conflicts, scheduling conflicts like our play rehearsal.
Exactly, that could be the first one on the list.
There you go, you can start your folder.
What are we versing? The what?
Our play rehearsal versus the blacklight bowling.
Oh.
Space refusal.
You're all invited, by the way.
Thanks.
And then the cost would not only be cookies for a particular meeting, but an increase in personnel hours or whatever is related to increasing these.
Mhm.
So that would be, I would think, important at some point. We don't need to do that tonight, but I think that would be important.
Mhm.
On sub goal 2, the whole notion is this is gearing up for a building project. And if that's the
Mhm.
case, then I think there needs to be either some additional goals or much more explicit as far as ramping up to do that. I mean, in some ways, the strategic plan seemed to indicate what needed to be done, but less how to get that done, if you know what I mean, like,
Right, but isn't that the idea
yeah,
of the strategic plan? It's the big picture.
Right.
Overall umbrella, and then
Right.
we're gonna take and make our own building
Right,
plan that fits into these
right.
with our tasks and our
right.
ad hoc committees and that sort of thing.
But we said we were gonna start with this, so I'm trying to figure out
Right.
what are we using this for exactly tonight to get going on the expansion project?
Well, it spells out the high level goals.
Well, yeah, yeah, but now we have to figure out what to do to,
So, yeah, so
that,
if
you
it
know.
says increased number and variety of meeting spaces, well, what number do we need? What variety do we need? That's where we need to go at some point.
and I'm not sure that we're even ready for that,
Oh, I'm not sure we are either,
you know?
but that's.
Yeah. Yeah,
We have to get there
right,
somehow,
Right.
and keeping track of all of these things and,
yes,
you know, if. People need tutoring and are they tutoring in a, you know, just in the library, would it be better to have a separate space for them somehow? The library we were in and they had those little pod things,
that was the one in South
South
Burlington, the new one, the big one.
contain the sound.
Yeah,
so people
Yeah,
could-
I wasn't a big fan of that. That would make me
No.
claustrophobic, but,
I wasn't
right,
a
going
big
in one of
fan
those
it
little
either.
pods,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
we might also want to go down to the, Kevin's,
Shelburne.
the Shelburne one, they just did, because we didn't do that one, we just did,
No, we
and
did.
we did Shelburne.
oh, I didn't go to Shelburne,
Mhm.
so maybe some of us should go.
Yeah, I haven't been.
I thought, for me, and maybe you already know the answer to this, to raise the more fundamental issue, how much area for expansion do we even have? I don't know what I don't even know what the legal arrangement was with the school district.
Sven went to you went, right, Sven, to the school board?
Yes, Holly and I were there. I mean, we would mention it. We do have a lease with the school district for the property. It's very little, but thankfully it's not much. In fact, they were. But we would, let them know about the expansion. Of course, they would be involved in any process along the way. But I know we can expand, what, 2 ways, Holly?
Yes, we can go that way and we can go a little bit this way.
Exactly.
And
Well,
we can go the
a
other
little bit
ways
each
too,
way.
but
It might take out the
No,
gardens, and the master gardeners would have to build somewhere else, which they'd be fine with.
they'd be thrilled.
They'd
Wasn't
be
there a
thrilled to have
caveat?
something new. But of course, I mean, once we get a little more, I mean, it is up to the school and the properties committee to look at the planning to make sure it doesn't affect anything of the property itself.
Wasn't there a caveat, something like no more parking or something?
No, so what they're facing right now is the new stormwater laws.
Oh, right.
So they just want to make sure that we're not gonna impact their stormwater
Right.
requirements.
I knew there
which,
was something.
You know, if we do, get the master gardeners to build rain gardens
Yeah.
for the roof runoff, because that's the only thing that we're really gonna expand is the
Mhm.
roof.
Mhm.
As far as stormwater goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so they didn't really say how much space. They just said, go ahead with your.
Go
looking
ahead
at
with the planning, but we're going to
planning.
make sure they are
keeping-
aware of the process as we get further.
And
So
once,
we'd want to check with them when we started contracting with somebody, because my notion is it's one thing for the board to sit around and get a sense, even if we had a process for figuring out how much more space we needed. But at some point, it has to be professionalized.
Oh,
Not
yes.
necessarily an architectural plan, but I wrote in my notes to myself, some kind of space utilization study, where first you have somebody come in and tell us, well, you could tweak this and tweak that. Now, before Holly laughs, I know the person's gonna say, okay, and I'm gonna come up with an extra 20 square feet that way. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of wiggle room. But at some point, you need to have somebody come in and kind of look through their own eyes. And then you start to get a sense, okay, because whatever could be built would be no less than 5 years down the road, even if we were hitting the ground running tonight. Okay, so we still got 5 years to deal with, you know. So maybe this person comes in and said, why don't you do this over here and do that, and then you'll get this 20 square feet that I told you to get. And then we start, but we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna pay, you know, for this, and that goes back to this community fund thing, and because we have to pay for that before we can't ask for money from the public to study the issue, because then the milk gets soured. You got to come up with your own money to study the issue before you go forward we're thinking of floating a bond. So at some point, I would think one of the first steps, now that we've gotten the initial blessing from the school district, is to have somebody come in with different eyes and say, here's what you've told me. Here, we need to check with these 5 people, and I mean, we can do most of that, but at least that was my notion. I just know that.
Well, you're on the right track. So the last time that we did this, that's what we did, is we decided our overall goals of what we wanted to do. You know, like we needed more space in the children's room. We needed this room to be bigger, maybe separated. And then we put it out to bid, well, we did request for proposals from architects that we invited. And then those architects came and gave us presentations.
Oh.
And the board chose an architect to work with, and they started doing the fine tuning stuff.
And did they
And-
produce anything?
Yes, but that was so long ago that it's
Doesn't
not really a relevant plan anymore, because
Right.
it's totally different than what we needed back then.
Right.
But so the board did a big fundraising thing. They raised $5,000, which at that time was enough to pay the architect to create the plan. And then we went to the bond vote, which didn't pass.
Right.
And then it just stopped right there.
Right.
So we still have the plans, but yeah, it would need to be different.
What was the bond vote amount?
Oh, I do not remember.
A lot less than it would be today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I will say, if you remember the thing that you showed us, there were a lot of pieces that were moving. They were building this way.
They were.
They were building this way. They were building that way.
Every single wall was moving, even if it was only a couple feet.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
you know, this went out to the sidewalk, and that side of the building went out to the sidewalk on that side, and
So my point is, you know, we have to be really clear with our architect, because we have to look for realistic financial plans that we can afford, right? I mean, affordability, if you go out to the public with a huge thing, we're never going to pass.
Right.
Right? We're just not.
Well, that's why we need all that data, and then we need to collect, these were created from feedback that we got.
Mhm.
I felt like we had good questions, and I felt Holly and Abby refined them. We did not get a lot of feedback because it was in the middle of the summer.
Mhm.
All of the community boards were not meeting, so, you know, I think that's where we get more information about why we need these things. And that might be, you know, a winter project that we can do, is go to the community boards and get more information to support these goals.
And as I was reading these, without going into my frustration too much with the town library board that used to drive me nuts, because I'll just take a slight detour. When this library was formed, one of the caveats was that that library would not be closed. There was never any mention of supporting it financially. It was just, we'll close the Delaport, but you guys can stay open. And slowly, there's been this incremental creep of funding. And now the funding is quite substantial. And they've talked a number of times, and I caught some flack from people in town, because we're a town of 5,000 people, and we got 2 libraries, and people would be like, what a spoil sport you are. But they're still talking about sinking $1 million into that building.
Oh my
This was
gosh.
within a year ago. You know, they needed an elevator, they had to redo the foundation, and so as we roll this out, you know, I don't know what their plans are. It got trounced. When it went for a vote, it got squashed. But it wasn't that long ago. So I'm a little concerned that, you know, next thing we're getting into kind of a horse race. So it seems like to me, politically, one of the things we can do through Abby's work and through any kind of programming is to be constantly playing that up. Look at all these great things we're doing in, you know, on so even Front Porch Forum or other sorts of things, because we're slowly trying to build this support in preparation for the ask. And it drives me nuts that the amount of money that needs to be sunk into that other library. And
Which will have an impact on what people are willing to pay.
yeah,
This library.
yes,
So
exactly.
they are applying for the MERP grant, which I also applied for. So I do know that that's, Jeff is doing the paperwork for that. Well, had to already have been in by now, but I know that that is what they plan on doing for funding this next try. But so far, none of the buildings in Chittenden County have gotten any, just like none of the libraries in Chittenden County got any of the
Right.
Department of Libraries money either.
Mhm.
We don't have the need in Chittenden County according to the state.
So I was just in a great library in Colorado that had a cafe and a used bookstore. I
love that.
It was great. Well, I was thinking, we don't really have a cafe here in town. Anyway,
You volunteering to run it?
yeah.
You
Yeah,
can,
thank
you
you.
can imagine a space where the library didn't run it, but they farmed it
Self-serve.
out to somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's been places that have done it.
And you know, you take care of it, you make the money, and we want a little tiny bit of percent of it, but it's mostly just a draw.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then you don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
yeah. Anyway, so,
Anyway,
So we had done, and I don't think everybody was here, but we had done quite a bit of work. Maybe a year ago. We had actually created a PowerPoint because we had gone through and we had itemized the things after we had visited those libraries. I think you had started some of that and then we turned it into a PowerPoint. And I think you were gonna take the PowerPoint and because you didn't like it, so you were gonna.
well, because it's not a PowerPoint, it's a document.
It was a,
It was done in
It's
PowerPoint,
in a
but it's
PowerPoint format, but
format,
it's
but
not
it's
something you would present
to
to the.
people.
I would.
Yeah,
Well,
Well,
wow.
I
Yeah.
see it more as
User
so the person who's presenting uses that as a guide. Not
Right.
necessarily you throw it up and say, all right, let's talk about, it's more for the
Yeah.
person presenting
Right,
than for.
like the
yeah,
notes, yeah.
because, I mean, if you look at PowerPoint, I mean, there are
they
clear
need to be
guidelines
jazzed
about-
up, you're saying. Needed to have.
Well, it's a
documents.
lot of text and
Yeah.
it needs to be like a PowerPoint needs to be not more than this long and
Mhm.
So
3
many
bullets and no
pages.
font
But
smaller
it's
than.
important information that's in that document.
Exactly.
whatever
There
you
is.
call it.
Exactly.
So,
Well, but
and
it's-
I've done some work on it.
Yes, it's a great, it has a lot of great information. It's not a format that you would put up on a screen
Well, I don't think
and
that,
talk from.
that
And
wasn't
that
the
was-
point of getting
Right.
up and doing a
Right,
dog and pony show with it.
right,
That was the
but it's
point
still
of-
not anything you would put up in front of people, because
Except for maybe us.
we give them
so
a
we
hard
could talk
copy
about
of it at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I don't know why we're quibbling about what it's called. I
Well,
think,
because PowerPoint implies a presentation that you're gonna put up on a screen, and that's what a PowerPoint slideshow is.
Visually engaging.
Visually engaging for your people. Right. This document is more of a Word document. It has a ton of wonderful information in it, but it's not something that you would present to people. You might give it to them at the end of a talk because it has all that great information in.
You present the highlights, you're saying.
That's my feeling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
well, I think that was the intent of the document. And it was created in whatever creates a PowerPoint. It was created there so that as people made it, they could go from one page to the next and see it. I don't think it was ever developed such that it was meant to be presented. That the PowerPoint was the creating mechanism.
Right. But it's not, but just by putting it in PowerPoint implies that you're gonna present it. It's like a Word document. Why would you present that? That's what the PowerPoint tool is for.
It sounds like we're all in agreement that this document that was created is meant for the board as a guide in speaking to the public, but we never intended to use it to show the public. Am I hearing that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's not a problem.
that's where we've
Right.
been.
Mhm.
And-
So where
and I
do we
think-
go from there?
So I think I've done some work on the document, and I happen to like the fact that it's in the PowerPoint format, because then I can go from page to page and see on the side what the next page says. And that works for me, because that's visually how I think, or I think visually. So I don't have a problem with that, and I've done work on it, and I'll look at it again, and I will forward it to everybody again. And there's questions in it that people will hopefully respond to. And that would be great. And then about a year ago, there was another thing that we had created, of goals that are similar to this. That I looked at too, and put in a bunch of questions, trying to get us to think more specifically. So I'll try to find that and send that one out again. So maybe then we will have we'll more be on the same page on, so that's more. That one is more about the actual space that the library needs. And then the non-PowerPoint is more about how we collect our thoughts in order to talk to the public.
But isn't that kind of getting ahead of the plan when we don't even know exactly yet what it's gonna look like?
I don't think so, because I think as you guys are collecting data and we're in this space, I think it's important to keep in mind questions and ideas, and try to say, how, if we need more storage space, it's great to say we need more storage space, but what does that look like? What are we storing? Who's going to be accessing it? How often? Those are the questions we need to answer before we talk to an architect or somebody to drop a plan, because if you just say more storage space, they might give you another closet.
So that's what an architect does, though. He will ask you those questions.
Well,
He guides you through the Black River guided us through. The whole board met once a week with the architect, and we went through the plan bit by bit, and he said, so what is your goal for this space? Who's using it? How are you accessing it? What's its purpose?
Yeah, I get that, but I still think the more over time that we can all think about this, give them better answers.
Maybe it'll be clearer in our minds, like what we're all looking for if we
Mhm.
talk through it first, I think
Yes.
is your point.
Right.
So then we're all on the same page when we are talking, so that we're not disagreeing, because you say, well, geez, let's put a shed out there, and you'll say, no, I don't want a shed, you want a closet, whatever. But, maybe we can come to some agreement before we meet with them. Is that what you're trying to?
That's what I'm talking about. And we don't even need an agreement. We just need to think about it over time. Not just,
Well, let's not take too long in thinking about that, because I mean, as Holly says, and probably from other libraries that have had this experience, it is, you sometimes need the outside consultant, the outside architect who's done this before and can lead you with the right questions to make you think about what you want.
Yeah,
And that is why it's important. So, I think it's fine, letting us sit there, and we can sit strategically for, a few meetings to do this. But at some point, we do need to pull the trigger and go ahead with the architect who can help guide the process.
so maybe
further.
we set goals for ourselves. We say, next meeting, we're going to take that list of items and let's walk through it at the next
Mhm,
meeting.
mhm.
And you can get it to us beforehand.
Mhm.
And maybe that would be a good goal for us to do for our next meeting. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
That sounds like a
could
good
be-
step forward.
What I was
For an
gonna
agenda
suggest,
for next
yeah.
meeting, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds very good.
But we limit it, I know what you're saying,
Yes.
Sven. We could draw this out for 6 months, and we don't want
Oh,
to do that.
easily.
We want to say, we're gonna do that next meeting, and then we're gonna find our next step after that, but we have to
Yeah.
keep moving.
Exactly. I mean,
But it sounds like what
for the
you're
next
saying.
meeting or two, we have our other meetings. We have our budget, so we're going to be talking a lot. So, I mean, I have a feeling even ideas about what we might want for expansion will also come up. And so, while we're even talking next Thursday about our budget, we can even in our minds start thinking about that.
So what you were saying, I'm just trying to clarify a little bit, and I appreciate what you said a couple minutes ago, is that document that was done in a PowerPoint format is largely an internal document. It's not the document we're gonna, it's not the presentation we're gonna use with the community. It's just for us chickens to figure this out over the next couple months, and may it not be 6 months, to Sven's point. And then at some point, we're gonna have to have something that's more accessible to most people in town who don't care about a lot of the details. Frankly, they just want to know how much it's going to increase their taxes, is really what most of them are thinking. So they don't necessarily need a 15-page document. They're just not that interested.
They want to see building plans and what's in it for me.
They want to have a
Exactly.
picture.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But what about this idea? I mean, I think that all has to happen, but this idea of trying to get more input from the community, so they feel like they've had a chance to give us input.
I think that's key.
I think it's really key
Well,
too.
don't forget, the one thing that Kevin had told us was that they didn't really do that piece, but they made sure that they took the 3 architect drawings to everybody in the town, to all the different, but they didn't ask them, do you want a media room? Do you want to, they didn't go to that nuance
No.
with them.
Right, and I don't think we want to go to that.
But they took the architect's plans and they took those to the people for their input.
And people respond to the pictures.
Yes.
the image.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, that's what we did with Black River too, is,
Right.
More
the
tangible.
board worked, we came up with a plan, they drew a basic design. It wasn't in detail, it was just a basic design. We put the big design out there, we had Post-it notes, and we said, what do you think? What would you like to change? What's missing? What do you not like? What do you like?
Cause I've asked people
Mhm.
during programs, like, hey, we're looking at an expansion in the next 5-10 years. What do you want? And they're just like, oh, we love you guys. You're perfect. I'm like, that's not.
No, that's not helpful.
And that's what I think, yeah, building that community input. I mean,
Well, and you also need to go outside of the building too. So once, the same idea in that you take that plan and you go to the select board, one of the meetings, you ask for a few minutes and say,
Yeah,
did
Yeah,
you guys look at this? Tell us what you think about it.
right.
he said they went to all sorts of meetings, like he
Mhm.
had a whole list of, they went to the schools, the Rotaries, the farmers market, senior housing. He told us that
Mhm.
they did 37 different small meetings.
I mean, the Lions group used to meet here until they got so big they don't fit in this space anymore, so they had to find another place to
Put that
meet.
in our
I
folder,
know, seriously.
Yeah,
that in our folder.
Right.
It
So
makes me
we're
wonder
just-
what a site like, it sounds like we're not completely constrained. We do have a little bit of wiggle room. We're putting on some additional space,
Mhm.
but it made me think about the Brownell that I go into once in a while because the
Oh.
Vermont History Room is just the best. But they can't expand anywhere. They have no place to go. And meanwhile, the place is packed with kids after, I mean, they sell snacks at the front desk for kids.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah, those
Oh
little
my God. Nightmare.
snacky bars things.
Mhm.
And
Golly.
it's just overrun with kids. And then there's people everywhere, except downstairs where the stacks are. Then there's only like a couple old people. But on the main floor, and I'm thinking, where would they possibly expand? How could they do anything? I mean, how do they approach the expansion of programs, given that they can't do any more than they're doing right now? And I wouldn't dare ask them, but it just made me
build a
wonder
new
what,
library in a different location.
probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
The thing too is that's a different, like Essex has other community spaces, maybe. I don't know that much about
They have
Essex.
the
They do.
community
Where we
center
don't-
right next door.
The senior thing, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And then the Parks and Rec has this by the
Yeah.
park, yeah.
Right,
That's
so they
true.
might have other meeting spaces where I think we're looking at the fact that this is one of the few
Mhm.
meeting places
Mhm.
that Jericho
Both
and Under
towns,
have,
yeah.
right? Other than the community
Yeah.
center and using the schools.
Or the town hall.
So the town halls and the library are the only free spaces. If you use a school space, you have to pay for the
Oh, you do?
custodian.
Really?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
if you use the community center, you have to pay for that.
Unless you're
It
a
depends on what your
not-for-profit,
group is.
I think, right?
I know, but
yeah.
You're supposed to, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, so, it's, anyway, so,
So the question I have is still, like, I know Shelburne said they took plans and then went to the community. But where did they get the information that they needed to do an expansion? Because to me, it feels like just being that the first step to the community.
So their original
Their board.
building had a lot of physical issues.
Right, and we don't have that. I'm
Right.
just
Well.
wondering, like, what is the best? I mean, to me, it feels like we would go out to the community more, like we tried to do with the strategic plan questions,
Mhm.
just to give them a sense that there's input, that we're asking for their input, and maybe we get nothing new. But, like Abby says, we're thinking about an expansion. What are ever those questions were in the strategic plan, like, I can't remember what they were, but they were pretty, we have it online. You probably have it, Abby. What do you want from your library? What's missing? There were some really good questions. And there were only 3 or 4 of them, right? I mean, it just seems to me the more we ask the community for information, it sort of lays the groundwork for an expansion, and it makes them feel, helps build an investment that for them. I could be way wrong. I don't know.
I'm just thinking that I don't think we'll get a lot more specific feedback. I mean, like you got, and you're perfect, but from our visits to the other libraries, we kind of know what direction we were thinking of going, and you guys have also been putting your inputs in.
Yeah, but that's again what we're thinking. What are they thinking out there?
They're thinking they don't want to pay any more
I
money.
was just gonna say that.
That's what they're thinking.
Well, I don't know about that.
I can guarantee.
I mean, I know that they're thinking that, but there are people who use the library who would like it to see offer. I know when the Jericho Library did a remember they had the QR code and everything. I mean, they got a fair amount of responses, when they reached out to the community and in different ways to get, and even if we get the same answers, at least we can say, look at all these responses we had, I mean, I
Well,
just think building our
maybe
case.
answers from 2 years later, so maybe there will be different opinions or much more interest. I mean, if it shows, I mean, that we were just sort of doing we're just gonna get a feeling for it. If we're getting to a point where there's a knowing that we are going to be serious, will people think differently? Yeah, maybe. If we know there's plans in front and saying, hey, we have some plans and here, take a look and here's the QR code, we're gonna get lots of responses. But I mean,
Yeah.
it all depends on the ask and what the result is going to be. I mean, as Wayne could probably say, the town library was very active in the last few years to with the town and the board and getting more funding. So yeah, they probably got more response for it. If we have a good ask and a good reason why they should respond, maybe we will get more.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm a little gun shy about some of the timing, frankly, because if we had a school vote and a town vote on the same time, I don't believe the highway department would have passed. That was just a fluke that happened. And plus we had a $500,000 to throw in from ARPA funds to sweeten the pot. Without those two things, people would have been all over that. It wouldn't have happened. So we're coming in after that. We're just about on reappraisal. We know what the status of the school
God.
stuff. So we got to be, I mean, at some point we got to strike and act. But I think
Yes.
we want to be really mindful about the timing of it because we asked at the wrong time. Then we have a lot of pushback and we also have a failed vote. And then going out after those things makes it politically harder. So I don't know. I mean, call me a wuss, but I just feel really leery about that.
Yeah.
No, I
It's
think
not a
you're
wish.
right.
You're thinking strategically, and that's true. When if you're the only thing out there, there's going to be focus on you. But if you're one of many, there'll be less of a focus. And as you say, that could be why the garage passed. So I mean, who knows?
I'd say, Barbara, if you thought that you wanted to do that, I would probably want to ask more specific questions like, hey, do you know that we have this great new fiber optics? Would you be interested in using the library for telehealth? Would you want to have more meetings?
Well,
Like
we
asking them specific questions.
we actually had that conversation. I wish Bill and Caroline were here. We shied away from doing a more,
But that was for your
Specific.
strategic plan.
Yeah,
This
Yeah.
is for the ask,
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go out and ask them, I think if you ask just a general question, you're not gonna get what you need. I think you have to be very targeted
You have
about,
to give them some ideas of what's
Exactly.
possible.
would you be interested in using the library for, this? Or if we were able to do, I don't know, what were you doing? What were they doing in South Burlington? They were doing blogs or no, they were doing
yeah.
something in that. They had a sound
Podcasts.
booth or something, podcasting and streaming and, would you be interested in that kind of stuff? So I think,
You're kind of planting the seed. You say.
well, you're asking, and then, so if you're explicit, I just think if you go out with a general statement, we're not gonna get enough feedback, but we want to, and that kind of
Or
plants the seeds that
even-
this is what we're looking for.
Yeah, are you part of a group
That
that is
would,
looking
yes.
for meeting space?
Exactly,
Mhm.
in the
Free
town,
meeting
And how
space.
many- what?
Free meeting space.
free meeting
Free
space
meeting
in the town.
space. And how big is your group?
Right.
Mhm.
And I mean, right now, we have to limit groups to twice a month because we have such a demand.
Right,
Yeah.
There's
I know, I
groups-
got knocked out. Y'all only have it twice a month.
It's funny when you're sorry, I had to
Kids
go
off
away
at
to
6:30
take
in
care
the
of my
morning
daughter for a
story
second.
time before school.
No.
Yes.
Wait.
Sorry, Sharon, what you were saying about Sharon,
I'll
what you were
do it.
saying about being specific in groups and meetings, we have all these wonderful goals and tasks. We can even put out teaser questions once a month, once every few weeks to try and elicit opinion rather than one giant poll.
That's a good idea.
That's also another
That's
thought
a
about
great
strategically
idea.
what to do.
Yeah.
And I like advertising that we now have this great new internet. And because if people wanted to do meetings or telehealth, it's so much
Mhm.
easier now that we've got great
Right.
internet, right,
Exactly.
Holly?
Exactly.
And then
As of Monday, we do, yes.
Yeah. And that, I think that is great, like in our newsletter, on the website and stuff, but we also, and I don't have an answer for this, it's an ongoing question. How do we reach the people who don't use the library?
You go to them.
You're gonna.
We're gonna
Yeah.
go to these 37 different organizations. We're gonna list all the organizations we can think of. Mountain Mamas, the Rotary, the Lions Club, I mean, whoever all these
Well,
groups
not
are.
only that, but you just do little community coffee things too, where, you know, so-and-so is a supporter of the library. Would you invite your neighbors in so that we can come
Yeah,
talk to you
That's a good
about,
idea, yeah.
about the library?
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah, that's like that charrette thing that he was talking
Yeah.
about, yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
So you don't have to do everything on a grand, big
No,
scale.
not at all.
No, 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 no.
No, no, God, no. Who
We
wants
need
to do
find
that?
the influencers in the
Well, and that's what
area.
they did. That's what
Yeah.
Kevin did. They found, if you remember when he was talking, which was really interesting because he said the biggest supporters they got were not people who necessarily used the library, but people who are looking to improve the town, to improve the society that they live in. So not necessarily someone who wants to come and take out a book. So
Right.
we have to, and they went through the grand list and they looked at all the names in the grand list to try to find those people who might be really big influencers in their town.
Mhm.
So we might need to do that as well, because we need to find those people. And we need to invite them to be part of the building committee or the fundraising committee. So that we have broad, it's not just us, it's got to be broad people in the groups that we're going to create.
And they may not want to be, they may not be able to commit to being a full-time member of the fundraising committee, but would you come by a time or two and then, you know, they
Right.
gotta get their toe in? Rather than, oh, this is a one-year.
Or will you be the
commitment.
person who matches the
Exactly.
funds?
We'll get Connie to come back and do that because he's really, really good at the ask.
Is it?
He is
Yes,
excellent
yeah.
at the ask.
Really?
I also watched a wonderful webinar that was something about like taking the anxiety out of fundraising. And I can send it around to all of y'all. It was.
Please do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Abby.
That's my least favorite thing to do.
But if you've got a specific project with specific data that you are proud to present,
True.
it's easier than trying to sell something that you're like, oh, I'm a little vague on the details, so,
Sell the snake oil, yeah.
yeah.
Don't ask me any questions because I can't do details, but.
Right.
Okay, so do we
And
have some
that's where I
specific?
still think we need some way to get that information from people. You know, like those specific questions once a month or whatever. Cause then we can say, well, the community wants, you know, not just we, but.
Well, maybe
we've
if we're
got this
thinking about,
information from the community.
if we're thinking about next meeting's agenda, we were gonna go over the list.
Mhm.
based
Yes,
on what you-
documents, yeah.
And then maybe that comes out of that sort of follow-up
That could come up
questions
with
we might
questions,
Yeah.
That's a
have,
great
and
idea.
then we
Great
can start
idea.
farming them out through Front Porch Forum or whatever vehicle we're gonna do
Yep.
that.
I think Ellen had created the original list and then you had added your questions
added
to the
stuff
Ellen list,
to
if I
it,
remember
yes.
correctly. And then we had taken that and put that in the other document. I
I don't
think,
know that it made it into the other document. I think they're two
you
separate
think so, but there's,
things. But
so
there
we've got
are-
the Ellen list in your questions. Okay,
And my questions, that's one, and then there's the Word document.
Word/PowerPoint.
That
Good.
document, which is the kind of the cheat sheet for talking to people.
Didn't Ellen take things and prioritize? That's the work Ellen did. She did some prioritization of,
It was more of a list. I think.
Yeah.
And then I added questions
right,
to it.
yes,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good place to start.
Well, also Jen did a lot of work on it too. Jen Greenwood when she was on. the board.
Originally, yeah.
Right, yes.
that's right.
And Ellen's thing came from Jen.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we'll dig that out and that would be the first order of business for next meeting.
Yeah.
And the goal for that will be to what? To,
To come up with specific questions we want the public.
and how would we actually do that? Is there a? I've done, you know, the monkey thing where you ask questions,
Survey
but how would you
monkey.
send out just a weekly question or a monthly question?
We
or-
can leverage our social media.
Ah.
Susan's done a really, really good job growing our Facebook and Instagram following and increasing engagement there. So I think that we
Mhm.
have more visibility in that online space right now, and we.
It's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're more likely. to
Put the
be
question out there and
engaged.
let people respond
Yeah.
online.
And that's just one vehicle, right? It can go in Front Porch Forum. It can go in a little whiteboard out front with sticky
Exactly.
notes.
Right.
Flyers
Mhm.
with the QR code directing it to the question or something even.
Mhm.
Right.
And we can
A
really.
banner on the
right?
website. This is
Yes,
this
exactly.
Yeah.
week's month's question.
Right, we can
whatever.
eventize it and make it fun, like, ooh, here's this month's question.
Exactly.
Ooh,
Well,
here's
and we
next
can-
month's question's
We can
gonna
also ask it at programs.
be. Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Of course. And if they already answered it once, they can answer it again.
Because not everybody's really that into online.
Right.
Although Front Porch
And they're the
Forum
ones that
really
might
cuts across
really
a
support
really
it.
wide
It's
section.
incredible.
There's all
Yes,
sorts
they
of
do.
different people that
Yeah.
read that.
Yes, yeah, and that might be a place where we can get those people who don't use the library.
Like when we have a presentation, when we have sort of the engaging version of this internal document we talked about, and maybe we have some 5-minute video thing, the link should be there. Because that's the people who don't come to the library also read that.
Mhm.
And they might click on a 5-minute presentation. People who go to the library will click on it, but other people might just, oh yeah, what is that?
You gotta do some kind of like a little teaser for it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A
So
little
that they
video short.
click and see what it
A
is.
promo.
Something that's real short.
and maybe when, as this gets, its a second wind or its most recent wind, maybe Bill comes back because he is one of those people who's quite well connected in town.
Mhm.
So he would be worth inviting back for a meeting. And then he and Catherine can start shaking the bushes around town. I think that would be, and there's other people like that. There's 10 people like
Well,
that.
that's what we need to find are those people. So I
Yeah.
think that's what these guys in Shelburne did, right? They found those people who who we need to invite to be part of that
Yeah.
broader group.
Yeah.
And
we
maybe
can-
Bill has some ideas too.
Can definitely come up with a list of names, I'm sure. I can think of like 6 right off the top of my head.
Okay, see, there you go. That's what we need.
Mhm. Sorry, I'm just
So is
writing, I'm writing Abby a note right now.
Uh-oh.
No, it's a good note.
You're awesome, Abby. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So did we, just for the notes, which I have are very kind of sparse. So we reviewed sub goal 1. And I put, we need data from the state report and other anecdotal reports to support the need for more spaces, programs, and attendance grow. And then for sub goal 2, I said, sub goal 2 was reviewed. There are many questions. And then I think we then went to capital planning, right? Conversations about how to elicit input and what next steps will be. And next meeting, we will review I put prior work done and generate questions to pose to the public.
Yeah.
I would just suggest this one thing and,
Sure.
Holly can kick me under the table if she needs to. That about sub goal 2, we were going to review I don't know the name of this document. We were gonna review
There's 2 of them, yeah.
those documents in preparation for ultimately contacting professional services in regards to the space study.
Yeah.
This was leading up to that next thing, and you didn't include that in the notes.
I
and
think
just
that's
wanna
very
Push that just a
So,
little bit. This
under
was kind of
sub goal
getting
2?
ready to call somebody at some point soon.
Yes,
Is that true?
that would be our goal, right? We need to take that work and then the file that these ladies are gonna have put
Right.
together so that we can.
To
figure
pose
it out.
questions to the public as we prepare for, what'd you say, professional?
So are you thinking about a space consultant or are you thinking about a scoping study?
Well, it could be the architect at that point,
I
whatever.
guess
that's-
so.
But I think you're actually talking about two different things. One, it sounded to me like you were thinking, maybe somebody can look at this space and figure out.
Find some
better-
temporary
Better
uses, right? Yeah.
utilization.
Hard to believe, but yeah, maybe.
I know, it's hard, yes, it's impossible for me to believe, but, you know, we hang people from the ceiling.
Lofts, a lot of lofts.
You gotta get those ladders and start building up, Holly. You got the whole second floor over there.
Yeah, I
The
don't
library.
think our church would like that one.
So that's one thing, but then once we get more input from the public, and have all this data and we
Mhm.
start going out
Mhm.
there, with the word that we are expanding, then that's when we start talking to architects and having them come do presentations for whoever wants to come. And I think that's,
Do you think before we get to
Probably.
the architects, we need to put the teams together with the people that we're going to try to tap to join us?
So you guys are gonna be deciding who the architect is based on what they present as a plan.
So I was
but
trying to
if we-
figure out,
yeah,
do you include, like you're talking about including like Bill? Like,
Mhm.
is he before we get the architect or is he like those committees that we're gonna create? Like they had a building committee and a fundraising committee. Are those happening after we get
Those
the
usually
architect?
come after the architect because the
Okay.
architect will work with them on details.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, for
they
me,
take those,
Bill is after.
yeah,
Bill's
then they take
after.
those
Okay.
details
Then I get
out
it.
to
Then
their
you're right. Then
groups and
that's the
sell
right
it
order.
more or
Yeah.
less.
Okay.
but I think before we get to the architect, I think there needs to be some way we get just the word out that seriously we're talking about expanding.
Isn't that these questions?
These are these questions, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but, yeah. I guess maybe that's good enough, but. and
Well, I
what
think
the
if you
need
start
is.
using all these resources, social media, the newsletter, front page forum, and put out these questions, we'll work on the
in a
wording.
5-minute
of how that
video
says.
presentation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I mean, really, yeah,
No,
we'll
absolutely.
publicize all that stuff, but like, that's what we'll work up to, because we've got to get ready for that. We've got to be.
Oh,
ready,
absolutely. Yes,
we have a lot of work to do.
yeah, but we're gonna.
Yeah.
Incrementally.
I didn't quite get all the words you had. So I said we reviewed subgoals, there are many questions. Then under capital planning, I said conversations about how to elicit input and what next steps will be. As we move towards,
Professional engagement,
Services or whatever.
Yeah. engaging professionals in our,
Yeah.
as next steps will be,
and we'll decide what those professionals need to be.
as we
kind of
move
roll this out.
Exactly.
towards.
Now, who had hired the professional fundraiser?
They
Was
did,
that
well,
Shelburne?
Kevin did, Shelburne, yeah. They hired a professional, they hired a consultant from Middlebury to help with fundraising.
Mhm.
Okay,
And then they created two committees, a building committee with select board members and board of trustee members. And then they did fundraising committee, which was chaired by that hired fundraising consultant that they had. And they went through the grand list, and this is where they targeted people and
yeah,
focused not just on library users, but on the community members who want a vibrant community. So.
I mean, it sounds like what Holly was saying before was spend $5,000 to get some conceptual charrettes. We want, and they're old now.
Mhm.
So we kind of want to get back to that point, brush ourselves off and then go ahead. That's what my sense is, right?
And I think
I
this
think so.
documents that we're looking at will give us the sense as to what are we going to be asking for in those layouts that they do for us. And I think we have to be at, I don't know how much things cost anymore. He was saying that,
So,
I mean,
so I'm good friends with that Black River architect.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, he uses me as promotional tool for future work. So I can drop him questions every now and then. So he said basically take the cost of what it was the first time
oh,
around
gosh.
and double to triple it.
But if we didn't go out like every which way.
Well,
if we just-
exactly.
You know, if we just went out the back and just made a nice rectangular building, you know. that
Just
would-
a nice box. go
Right,
that way.
exactly, exactly, not with all the fancy stuff that they were doing, like,
Right.
would it really be 3 times? I don't know, maybe it would be, but I
It
think.
depends on the size of the box.
Exactly, decides and
And the
what we have in the
elevator,
box.
and if we go
And what's
up.
in the
You
box?
go up, you have to have an elevator and 2 staircases. I did learn that one.
Whoa,
Yep.
2 staircases, really?
Yes, you have to have 2 exits.
Two exits that don't.
He said they
depend.
spent $2 million on a 2,000 square foot addition. And he thought Charlotte, and maybe that's the one place we haven't gone, might have a more cost-effective addition, which we need to check out. That's what he told us.
Charlotte's edition is interesting. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the time because we had set this as an hour.
Right.
Good. Have you been to Sola?
Well, I think we've had a very productive hour, so. I know, Barbara, you were just trying to get some notes finalized so we would have something for the record.
Yeah. Got it.
All right.
Good.
Because I think we don't need to document all of our conversations, right?
Gosh, no.
No, I mean,
recorded.
maybe when we get to more specifics and
Right.
get down the line, we might need to do more, but I think, this is good enough this is very good for the first meeting, and we also know that next Thursday, our meeting's going to be a little longer. So
Right.
we don't want to belabor our time tonight. If we want to I think it's good if we want to end the discussion now, it's completely acceptable.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay, great. We will end at 8:08, so that was approximately an hour, so.
Yeah, could I? Thank you.
Great,
Hopefully.
Great, well, thank you, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but
thanks.
parental duties called.
Richard is, and you don't. feel
And,
bad.
sorry, Pegs, I did send out a draft agenda for next week, so,
I saw,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right. Take
Great.
care, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.